Hi everyone, it's Tuesday. Welcome to Facebook Live with Dr. Susan Blum. We meet every week, as you know, Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. While we're waiting for everyone to gather, because I've noticed that it takes a few minutes for everyone to sort of come on board and join us, and then we get going, I'll just get us set up and start talking about a little bit of housekeeping and what we're going to talk about and put it in context with how we do things here. Okay, so welcome to Blum Center. I'm at work today and just finished my morning of patients. So I was a few minutes late today. I realized, oh my goodness, this is a whole scramble for me every week. So I'm going to settle in. So the format that we use every week, which has worked out pretty well, is I'm yours for 30 minutes. And for the first 15 minutes, I will just talk on a topic. And I'll share the topic in a sec. But generally, I talk on a topic, and then starting at 1:15, I'll start taking questions, and we'll go from there, and we'll see. And sometimes the questions don't start rolling in until even later than that, and in which case I will just keep talking. I think our topic today will probably generate a lot of questions. It depends on the topic. Sometimes it really fires people up, because today we're going to talk about toxins, which is a huge topic. And there's a lot of confusion and questions out there. So I'm looking forward to sharing some information with you. So that's our general Facebook Live format. In terms of our topic, I have been doing a series on fatigue, and most of you already know. I'm hoping you're all joining me for the third of our 4 sessions. Today is session number 3. Now, the nice thing is all these videos are living on the website, so you're welcome to go back and look at topic 1, 2, and this will be 3, and then even next week will be 4, and they'll all live there. And just to help you frame it all out, this time I've gotten very sort of organized. Can they see this over here? Also? No, they're supposed to be able to see me on that. No? Okay, well, sorry about that. Our Facebook Live got a little, I scrambled a little to get us going today, so you can't see the board that's next to me, but that's okay, because it's all on your sheet of paper that you have downloadable right on the Facebook page. And you'll see there's a link to the downloadable form. And so what this sheet is, it's been available every week, and you can go back and grab it. You can grab it now. What this is it's the Dr. Blum's checklist for fatigue, for working up fatigue. And this is what I use with all of my patients. I put this in front of us and I say, okay, this is how we're going to work through figuring out why you're so tired. And the 4 main categories, which I broke into the 4 weeks that we've been doing, is week 1, we talked about, is it nutritional? So 2 weeks ago, we talked about, what are you eating? Exactly the foods themselves, looking at sugar, how you're sugar and other foods as well, stabilizing blood sugar, keeping your blood sugar from going up and down, how you're eating, skipping meals, stress eating. And then nutrient deficiencies, and we talked about how to measure nutrient deficiencies. So I'll let you go back to that one if you have more questions about that. So that's all about nutrition. What are you eating, and do you have any nutritional deficiencies that might be causing you to feel tired? So that's the first week. Second week, last week, we talked about hormones. And I did get very much involved in talking about the thyroid gland, which is so important. And I didn't talk as much about the adrenals, but I did show you a picture of the adrenal glands and the importance of the adrenals. And so if you're tired and you think your thyroid might be off, keep in mind, my message from last week was all your other hormones, your adrenal hormones, as well as your sex hormones interact with your thyroid hormones. So you need to address the whole the whole endocrine orchestra, including your thyroid gland. So your thyroid gland is important, but it's just one player in the whole orchestra. And but we spent a lot of time talking about details about thyroid, testing it, different kinds of hypothyroidism, how to treat it. So go back and look at that if you're interested in that topic. Today, we are moving on to, is it toxins or food sensitivities? And so that's the third big piece of looking at why you might be tired, what's causing your fatigue. And number 4, next week, we're going to talk about chronic infections, including the gut microbiome and the bacteria in your gut, as well as viral infections, the whole sort of infections and bacteria and viruses. And we're going to do all that next week. So coming back to today then, so you have this downloadable. It helps keep you framed out. Again, I'm sorry I didn't get set up right and So on my board here, I just have a list. It's exactly what's listed under week 3. So you have it, you can look at it in front of you. So let's talk about, I'm going to just do food sensitivities very quickly because I don't want to spend much time on it. I actually want to talk about toxins and toxic load and mercury, and I have some test results to show you and ways to test it. Food sensitivities, the definition of a food sensitivity is you feel better when you don't eat the food and you feel worse when you do. And it is entirely possible for a food or a food group or multiple foods to make you feel sluggish after you eat them. And the most common culprits, so people develop food sensitivities from a functional medicine perspective. Food sensitivities sort of develop because of a condition called leaky gut, which we're going to talk more about in next week when we talk about gut health. But a leaky gut allows food particles.
I don't want. Oh, you're back.
I'm back? Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry. Why there's no Wi-Fi signal? I have Wi-Fi, so I don't know why that happened, but we're back. So I was talking about food sensitivities. I did a whole Facebook Live in my library on food sensitivities and what food should I eat and nutrition. And so, but I definitely talked about food sensitivities and leaky gut before. So I'm not going to dwell on that today. I really want to get to toxins. But keep in mind, when it comes to food, the best way, I'm not going to cover testing for food sensitivities. I don't do much testing. I really do a lot of remove these foods, gluten, dairy, soy, corn, eggs, sugar, and do a stint of 2 or 3 weeks with no alcohol, and see how you feel. And so we do that. In terms of testing for food sensitivities and then reintroducing the foods again after you've eliminated them to see if it triggers the reaction. Okay, so that's food. I want to move on to toxins. It's really a topic that everybody has a lot of questions about, and we do routinely here. It's a very foundational issue for most people. And so the first concept I want to introduce is that a lot of times we go searching for what toxin is it, and my colleagues in the conventional medical world will say, well, how do you know what toxin it is and how do you test for it? I want to introduce the concept of toxin load. Okay, total toxin load in the body. Now, what does that mean? At any given time, in this moment, like if we use me as an example, right now I'm sitting here and my total toxin load is a combination of, I would give it 3 factors. It's a sum, it's a net of 3 factors. Number 1, how many toxins I've been exposed to over my lifetime, right? So it's because load is an accumulation, right? So what toxins I've been exposed to over my lifetime, combine, and then you add into that how well I've been taking care of my liver, and which means feeding it antioxidants, how well I've been eating and supporting my body in its ability to excrete those toxins. So toxins in, and then how well have I been getting rid of them? And getting rid of them, like I said, is a combination of food and nutrients and a lot of color and antioxidants and B vitamins and protein, and the liver needs a lot of stuff. But it also depends on your genetics. And this is where some people are very handicapped. And I can tell you for myself that I've done detox genetic testing on myself, and there's panels we can do, detoxigenomics, that look at how well your liver, which is sort of filled with enzymes, and the activity of enzymes are genetically determined, or at least the potential activity of those enzymes. But we can do some genetic tests that look for certain handicaps. And so, for example, I'm handicapped in my glutathione system. Glutathione is one of the most important antioxidant systems that help us get rid of heavy metals, for example, like mercury. And so therefore, my glutathione is a little handicapped. And so when I look at my whole equation, if I eat a lot of fish, which brings me a lot of mercury, I'm going to have trouble clearing it out because of my genetics. And so therefore, unless I eat a lot of nutrients and foods and colors and good food to keep my liver going and to help my glutathione system work better, I'm going to be really handicapped and I'll accumulate mercury very easily. Now, even though I picked on mercury, I want to say that the glutathione is responsible for clearing out a lot of toxins. And so therefore, all my toxins will fill me up and make it even harder for me to clear that mercury, because all the other toxins are flooding my liver and my detox system and trying to help in their own competition to get out of my body, right? And so I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to sort of restate that again in maybe what sounds a little more simpler. What I want to do is help you understand, and I do this in my book. So I have a great book, The Immune System Recovery Plan. And in the book, I have a whole section on detox, and there's an assessment you can do, which is, how big is my toxin load? So I want you to think about your toxin load and think about it this way. What have my exposures been all my life? Have I eaten a lot of fish? Have I been exposed to a lot of pesticides? I mean, this is even just, some people give me stories, like I just had a new patient who told me that when she grew up, I'm not going to share where she grew up and all that and the details, but when she grew up, they sprayed DDT because it was a mosquito, a place at risk for mosquitoes, and they sprayed DDT throughout her house, inside the house, outside the house, on her property, her whole childhood. And so do you have an exposure like that? So things like pesticides. Do you love playing golf? Are you walking on a golf course all the time? So pesticides, right? So that's a kind of a toxin. Plastics are toxins. And these are all things that are all toxins that come into your body and that your body has to metabolize and excrete. And if you're handicapped in any way because of your poor genetics or because you aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables and lots of antioxidants and color, which your liver needs, you have the risk of having a higher toxin load. Okay? Now, what happens when you have toxins in your body like that and they accumulate? Toxins get absorbed into all your cells and all your systems, and especially heavy metals like mercury can end up in your mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the little furnace inside all your cells, and the mitochondria help you make energy. And toxins actually go inside your cells, into the mitochondria, and they uncouple the mitochondria function, which it's sort of it's a biochemical term, which just means that the mitochondria stop making energy like they should. So the metals really interfere with your energy production inside all your cells. And so they're a direct cause of fatigue. And so what can you do? So when you do your own little self-assessment about, are you eating a lot of fish? At this point, there's a lot of fish. All fish have mercury. You can't even just eat the low mercury fish. And I see we have only another couple of minutes, and we'll see then if there are questions. But I want to share about testing, and then we can talk a little bit about treatment. The first thing is to do sort of a little assessment for yourself about reducing your exposures. So it's like eat organic when you can. You can go on the Environmental Working Group website and look at it's called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and choose those foods to buy organic. It's expensive not everyone can afford to do organic all the time. So at least choose the Dirty Dozen and try to eat organic with those foods. But looking for where your food comes from, choosing food that is, you're eating what the animal ate. You're eating what the plant was fed. So you always have to go a step beyond the food you're eating and look at the way the food was grown, the way the food was processed, the way the food was raised. And you're looking for as little hormones and pesticides down that those foods were made with as possible. So and I actually have people limit their fish to no more than twice a week, and beware of the high mercury fish. So there's a little bit of clean up your world, right? Reduce your exposure to things. If you're a painter and you do art and you get exposed to sort of smelly, solvents, or even using lead-based paints, then be very careful. Wear gloves, wear masks. You got to be careful. Okay, so that's sort of toxin load, and you would be surprised at how common it is for people to have a high toxin load. You might not know anything about your exposure. You might think, I have no real exposure I could think of. We are all exposed every day to toxins. We basically live in a toxic soup. If you're living in an urban area, then you are breathing in toxins from pollution. There was a recent study that just came out that associated living near a highway or close to a highway with Alzheimer's disease. And so we know that just everyday life, living on our planet right now, we're all exposed. And so we have to take measures to reduce our toxic load. And so the one side of the equation is reducing our exposure. but we can't get rid of all our exposure. And so that brings us to what else can we do? And for me, that means supporting your liver, helping your liver do the best job it can. The analogy that I always use is if you look at a stagnant pond that has like gunk and muck in it, and it's got no flow, right? Because the water's just been sitting there, it gets all sort of green and gunky. If you put a filter in the middle of that pond, you put one of those water fountain filters and it starts revving up and the water starts flowing, and the next thing you know, the water's clear. And so that's what we want to do with helping support your liver. So detox for me is just about supporting your liver so it does a better job excreting toxins. And how are we going to do that? And we do that with nutrients. Now, before we move on to that, I just also I've been holding this, so I feel like I want to show you. I'm sorry?
It's upside down.
Oh, it's upside down. Okay. So sorry about that. So some of the testing that we do here at Blum Center for Health, one of the tests that we do, it's called a red blood cell test. And this is, red blood cells live for 3 or 4 months. And so it's really nice to do this test, to do a heavy metals panel, to see whether or not sort of your average exposure over the past 3 to 4 months might be for mercury. Now, this person has undetectable levels of mercury. And, oh, is this me? Mm-hmm. This is mine. So this is because I don't eat much fish and I work anymore. Because my mercury levels at one time were through the roof. I had tons and tons of mercury in my blood. And so now I have undetectable. So yay. So my equation is working really well. Whatever I might be taking in, because I eat fish like once a week, whatever I'm taking in, I'm really excreting well. So my burden, it's not accumulating. So a red blood cell test tells me about my exposure for the past 3 or 4 months and how well I'm keeping up with it. This is just a patient's heavy metals test. I guess I haven't done one recently, so I didn't have one to print out for you. But this test is a little bit different. And actually, this person has very low mercury levels. But we do what's called a provoked urine test. And what it means is you take some chelation pills. They're called DMSA, and you take them before you go to bed. And then you collect all your urine. And those chelation pills grab the mercury in your tissues and in your blood and pull the mercury into your urine to be excreted through your kidneys, and we can get a sense of sort of the body burden of your mercury. So these are 2 ways that I actually check to get a sense of somebody's metals, their levels. Now, I do this for fatigue, so it's part of my fatigue evaluation, but I also do this for autoimmunity and immune dysfunction. Metals are a huge problem, and toxins in general, not just metals, damage the immune system, they damage the thyroid gland, and then the thyroid gland can be damaged and then you're tired, right? So indirectly, toxins can really damage the thyroid, which can cause fatigue that way too. I'm going to pause for a second. Are there any questions for me to answer?
Timothy wants to know if turmeric, curcumin, and coconut oil are good for your liver.
Yes, that's a great question. And so what's good for your liver? Because that brings me into my last topic of our talk. And so good, we have 10 more minutes. So the next thing I do want to talk to you about how to support your liver with detox. So actually I'll reframe that. How to support your liver for detox, to help it detoxify, to help it reduce your toxin load. Curcumin is, curcumin sort of the wonder herb. It's good for everything. It reduces inflammation, but it's also a really potent antioxidant. And so in its capacity as an antioxidant, curcumin is a great thing to add for your liver. I think coconut oil is not so much top on my list or studied for its effect on the phases of detoxification. So what does your liver need? Let's back up for a sec. Think of your liver like a conveyor belt. There's multiple steps that a toxin comes in and it gets moved along the conveyor belt. And the first step is it has to be converted from being fat soluble to water soluble. And this is where a lot of sort of the B vitamins come in. And a lot of just the general colors and the nutrients in the food that you eat. And some of the omegas come in here as well, and antioxidants. So it's really a very nutrient-dependent process, that very first step of changing the food over to being, the toxin, over to being from fat soluble to water soluble, because then you can excrete it. So step 1 is a lot of antioxidants and a lot of B vitamins, and also a lot of phytonutrients like polyphenols. Well, one second. Step 2 is going to be a lot of antioxidants, and step 3 is protein and amino acids for conjugation. Go ahead.
No,
Keep going. Okay, so I raced through that a little bit. So curcumin will really be helpful in that sort of antioxidant phase 2, because it's in step 1 of the conveyor belt, as you're working on the toxins, the first step, you make a lot of free radicals. So you need a lot of antioxidants to put out the fire. So there's a lot of work that the liver does. I would say we definitely need omega-3s and good, anti-inflammatory omega-3s and 6s like GLA and EPA and DHA. Coconut oil is a good fat, but I wouldn't put it on the top of my list for your liver.
David wants to know what your thoughts are on liver cleanses, and also others have spoken to him about coffee enemas for the liver, and what are your thoughts on the enemas?
Great, love that question. Let's do what a cleanse is. So the word cleanse can be very confusing for people, and so let's define that. A cleanse can mean just removing, because you want to be clean, right? So a cleanse can mean removing toxins. So some people use the word cleanse interchangeably for detox. So if we talk about a sort of a detox program, so I prefer to call it sort of a detox program or a liver support program, but perhaps we're saying the same thing. Sometimes we talk about gut cleanse, and so I use the word cleanse for the gut a lot more, like cleaning out bad bacteria and yeast. But cleanse is fine, and it's used really very much for detox. So what does it mean to do a detox program? So in the functional medicine world, myself and my colleagues, we do liver detox programs in a very similar way. We all give there's a food plan, and it's usually an elimination detox diet, which is really a clean program. So it's eliminating a lot of animal, gluten, dairy, soy, corn, eggs, red meat, pork, shellfish. There's a list of foods we remove: sugar, the high allergy foods like peanuts, and coffee, and as well as alcohol. And you do that for 3 weeks. Some people do 2. You can do any length of time you want. We do our favorite one here. The simple one is just a 3-week program. Remove all those foods and give the liver a targeted list of supplements. Give the person, so you will take a targeted list of supplements, and usually there's a detox shake, which gives you the amino acids and protein that you need for the conjugation phase of your liver, as well as a lot of antioxidants and herbs like milk thistle and N-acetylcysteine and lipoic acid and extra sort of liver detox support, liver cells, and detox pathway support nutrients. So really clean diet while at the same time taking a bunch of liver supplements to rev up your liver and help it work really well. That's really all a detox program is. We all have different versions of it. We also do 10-day intense cleanse where you do 2 shakes a day and a vegan program with 2 shakes a day, kind of thing. And, at Organic Farmer. So I also helped co-found a company called Organic Farmer, PHARMER. And we designed actually juice cleanses. And our juice cleanse day has a lot of protein. We use protein powders, and we use omegas and fat and almond milks and nut milks, and so it's actually there's enough calories and enough protein and fat in the cleanse. Beware of doing juice only all day that has no protein and fat in it if you're doing a juice cleanse with another company. So there's a same way you can use juices if you go to a juice company, but make sure that you're still getting adequate protein and fat in the juice cleanse day. It can be used as a liver detox, but without that fat and the protein, you actually, as I told you about your conveyor belt, you can start your toxins down the conveyor belt, but without enough protein that day or over the next few days, you're going to hit a wall. And sometimes people feel really worse when they do those sort of the companies that have just pure juice cleanse days that don't have protein in them. So that's my little explanation, because a lot of people ask me questions about that all the time, like how safe is a juice cleanse? And I think the functional medicine cleanses that we do with our liver support supplements are amazing and much more effective. But I also myself, I do a juice cleanse from Organic Farmer 1 day a week as my little reboot after the weekend. So I think those things can be done really well. And the way I designed that particular cleanse, it actually does cover all your liver bases. So that's the story about detox programs. It's pretty safe. All of us functional medicine people do it. So you could, feel free to choose one that you like to do. Circling back to coffee enemas. Coffee enemas actually were studied by a brilliant oncologist named Nicholas Gonzalez. He's the one who first sort of started doing them and studying them and reporting on the effectiveness of them. Apparently, they're actually very good for you. And they were used in conjunction with really intensive detox programs. And what they do is they trigger like a bile dump, you know, when they trigger your bile to be really released from the liver. So they help with enhancing detoxification, because after the liver takes your toxins, what happens, what's the last stage on that conveyor belt, is your liver takes the toxin that's now sort of morphed and metabolized, binds it to a protein, amino acid, sends it out through the bile, and it has to go out through your colon, through your intestinal tract, through your GI tract. And so how do you get that toxin out? You have to bind it to fiber. That's why it's so important to eat fiber in your diet every day. And eating only animal won't help you with your detox system, because fruits and vegetables, and yes, some whole grains, gluten-free whole grains, in a limited way. So, you know, for people who don't want to eat many grains, that's fine. But you do need the fiber to grab the toxins and pull it out. And that's how you actually pull them completely out of your body. Something about coffee enemas really helps enhance that whole process, as well as helps the bile somehow do a better job. So if you're inclined to do coffee enemas, that's fine. Usually we do coffee enemas are in programs. You can go to places where they'll, like spa or healthy kind of retreat places, where they'll actually do them for you. So I don't give them to my patients myself, but we do use fiber in our detox shakes. So we always add a scoop of fiber into our detox program shakes to make sure that the toxins are being pulled out. So how we doing? Okay, good. Well, we're just about wrapping up then. So let me bring us to a conclusion. Let me make sure I covered everything about toxins. We talked about heavy metal testing. And honestly, one of the first things I do with all of our new people that come in, or people, if someone comes in who fatigue is the big thing, I do a nutrition evaluation. I have them do an adrenal test, check their thyroid. And often I send them home on a detox program, because a 3-week detox program has the best chance to give you a reboot really quickly, because it'll get you off of all these foods and sort of toxins that you might be getting in through your daily diet, like alcohol, and it also boosts your liver, takes down your toxin load, and sort of clears you up. And I often find that if you do a detox program, by the end of that first week, I tell people, the clouds should start lifting, the sun should start coming out, you should feel a lift by the end of that first week, certainly by the second week. If your toxin load is very high, you might have a detox side effect, which could be feeling worse before you feel better. So if you start getting a headache, or by the end of the first week, and you start feeling worse before you get better, or you feel just really crummy, then consider that you might have a very high toxin load, and I would suggest you stick with it. And I really think it's good to try to stick with it anyway, and usually for everybody, second week, for the most toxic people, maybe the third week, the sun starts coming out and you really start noticing that you feel better. If you do a detox program and you don't notice any change in how you feel, and you do a really good bona fide functional medicine detox program, then and you do that whole program and you don't feel better and you still are tired, that's not why you're tired. It's time to go back to my other weeks that we did, right? My four different Facebook Live videos, and look at food, look at hormones, and if you've done everything so far, come back next week, because we're going to talk about viruses and we're going to talk about gut health, and maybe that's where the issue still is. So remember, I'm offering you a checklist. You're going to go, this is what we call a differential diagnosis in medicine. We have our checklist, and we just go through the checklist one at a time, or maybe multiple things at a time, but we have the list, and we're checking them off. And we're just seeing, is it this, is it this, is it this? And so this was our week to talk about toxins. And one of the best ways, if you can't test yourself to see whether or not, you have these toxins, you don't have access to these testing options, you can go to my book, The Immune System Recovery Plan. There is a whole assessment chapter on toxins, and you can sort of fill it out, and you can do some questionnaires that are going to help you decide whether or not you have a high toxin load. If you do a detox program, you'll see if you feel better. And so sometimes that's really the best way to know if toxins are the problem, by just going ahead and doing some sort of detox support program. Okay? So that's enough for today. I wish you all a wonderful week. Stay warm and dry. It's been raining here for 2 days. Crazy weather, really torrential rains. And next week we'll talk about viruses and the gut. So happy Tuesday.